Now, across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin.
I'm Greg Krugen in Houston.
And I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas, and we would like to welcome you to the third year of Texas, The Issue Is.
1, 2, 3. It's amazing. Time goes fast. Well, the issue up for discussion now is a seat at the table. That's the new name of a new campaign launched by the American Business Immigration Coalition. Now, this group is calling for the Trump administration to expand the work permit program for immigrants, believing it will stabilize a labor shortage in the food services industry from the farm to the tabletop. I spoke to one of the coalition members, Dr. Emily Williams-Knight, who is the president and CEO of the Texas Restaurant Association, about this proposed expansion and why she believes it's the right time to do it.
There is no doubt that while we were very fortunate to come out of the pandemic in a fairly strong position, really compared to so much of the country, I call it almost death by a thousand cuts. And one of those big elements is immigration as a huge part of our workforce.
Is this about making immediate change, or is this about inserting yourself into the broader immigration debate?
Yeah, such a good question. I think it's both. I think that one of the things that President Trump ran on was securing the border, but he also ran on making a strong economy. And we believe you can have both. And so now that we have a strong and secure border, it is time to focus on how to have a strong economy.
Detractors will say that this is a backdoor attempt at amnesty. Is that what this is?
It is absolutely not. We're not even using the words amnesty or citizenship. What we were trying to do is shine a light on the role that these folks play in our businesses. And for us, it's obviously in restaurants, that they're cooking and preparing food. They're establishing themselves. Many of them are very long-term employees. They contribute a tremendous amount. They're doing the right things. And so, no, we're not asking for citizenship or amnesty. We're asking for this specific population to get the work permits so they can actually come every day, work, pay their taxes, and contribute to their communities.
We have a guest worker permitting process. Is it just broken?
You know, it really just, I don't know if it's broken or not, because much of it doesn't apply to our industry. And so if you think about the H-1B, that's really technical. So you have a very specific technical skill like engineering or computer science. Then we have the H-2A, that is a seasonal visa just for agriculture. And the H-1B is a one-time that could be used for our industry, but we're talking about, in some cases, 20% of our workforce.
Does the coalition want to expand these work permits to undocumented people who are here now, or keep it with people who are doing the process legitimately?
Yeah, we would like to find a deferred action work permit for those that are here. Set the standard, right? Paying taxes, no criminal record, aka haven't committed a crime, is in one of these very covered industries like dairy farms, agriculture, preparing food in restaurants, and give those folks an ability to remain on a work permit as we sort out a much bigger action that Congress has to take, which is what we need is immigration reform.
It seems that having a work permit, that it actually would provide a step towards citizenship. But I think more importantly, and correct me if I'm wrong, it takes people out of the shadows and it prevents these people from being taken advantage of, because there are business owners who are bad actors who will either shortchange or not pay these individuals. Will this stop that?
Yeah, I think that it's a really good question. I think that right now, for those bad actors or those that are violating wage laws or harming individuals, there's a lot of processes in place to go after those people. But your second point is so important. And I do believe that by having a formal work permitting process, you will help people come out of the shadows.
How many more permits do we need?
We don't want to set a cap. Honestly, what we're very hopeful of, and I think what people ask me, Emily, why are you so hopeful right now? You know, under the last administration, they had a trifecta, House, Senate, and the executive branch. We made no progress on immigration reform. We now have a president who has openly come out and said, hey, I might want to think about this population of workers. And so what we're trying to say is, President Trump, we hear you. We can be a part of this and allow us to work together and bring our ideas to keep your border secure. But let's also give a chance to those people that may have been in our country for 10, 20, 30 years, in our case, working in our kitchens. Most Americans, I think, if you lay out those options, might be a little less black and white than they appear today.
All right, in a word, I'll sum up that interview with opening. Stephen, give me a word.
My word, formula.
Greg, what's your word for that interview?
Rudy, I'm going to go with pragmatic.
And with that, we'll take a break and then serve up a discussion on the idea of expanding the work permit program. Welcome back to The Issue Is. The American Business Immigration Coalition is calling for an urgent expansion of work permits, claiming doing so will stabilize food service and prices. Stephen, are North Texas consumers buying what this coalition serving up?
I think so, and I think this is something that multiple people, no matter what part of the state you're in, can possibly get around. I know we've talked about the enforcement component of illegal immigration, and what gets drowned out are possible solutions. That's why I mentioned formula as my word. This could be part of the formula to the overall process. We know that the food industry and even like the farming industry is heavily supported by, let's be honest, people who may be in the country illegally or actively working and are not doing other criminal things. And so I think this could be a solution, a part of the formula that could get to people coming together on something.
Yeah, I agree. You know, distracted could have been one of our words too, right? Williams Knight pointing out that an opportunity was blown when Democrats held the White House, the Senate, and the big house. At the time, instead of providing real immigration reform, they opened the border, causing a massive surge. They tried to wedge that door open with a one-sided plan that continued illegal crossings and tried to sell it as bipartisan. Greg, Trump likes to portray himself as the great deal maker. I think an opportunity for permit expansion, a deal with that, is real. What do you think? Is it real in Houston?
Yeah, I think most folks here think a new, well-structured, thoroughly policed work permit program in multiple industries is purely pragmatic, my word, economically and ultimately politically. First, you want to eliminate an inflation driver? Don't force agriculture, construction, hospitality, and food processors to exorbitantly raise wages to attract replacement workers, and that's if they can be found at all. Now, second, spare yourself the bad photo ops of masked ICE agents snagging collateral arrest abuelitas and busting up families, footage which gets played on a near perpetual loop with narration from breathless MSNBC and CNN anchors. Third, spare taxpayers the $10,000 to $15,000 per immigrant expense of executing a deportation arrest and then shipping folks to their nation of origin. Fourth, double down on locating the actual criminal aliens and continue promoting those arrests and expulsions. Finally, make crystal clear that any violation of the law will trigger both revocation of the work permit and immediate removal from the country. Rudy?
Yeah, and you mentioned this. I think the big key to this, to any work permit, is that it's got to be conditional. No crimes, keep your nose clean, take some civics classes, pay your taxes, and guess what? Welcome to Team USA. It's not that difficult, right, guys? Stephen, I think support from immigration lawyers, though, they're the ones that are cashing in on this cumbersome process right now. They've got to get on board. Am I just wishful thinking that they will?
I think they could. And like you mentioned in that interview, it's bringing these people to light, right? If they're in the country working, paying their taxes, doing what everyday Americans are doing, then just make sure that there's regulations on it. And if they don't follow them, then they're not in the country. And so I think people can buy into this solution. We'll have to wait and see if both sides are actually advocating for it in front of cameras and not just agreeing with each other behind the scenes.
Greg, do you think I'm right? The immigration lawyers, they're going to be the roadblock?
Rudy, I think the most critical constituency Trump has to persuade is the hard right of the Republican Party, the America for Americans only crowd, and that's a very tough nut to crack. A month ago, during comments at Alligator Alcatraz, the president expressed willingness to create industry-specific immigrant work permitting programs, but I haven't heard much of anything since. I'm guessing the president's advisors are split up into two camps: the immigration hardliners like Stephen Miller and the economic pragmatists like Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins. The result may be stalemate, at least until the midterms. Rudy?
Yeah, maybe this idea is just the icebreaker that gets into the broader discussion, all that. All right, Greg, take us home.
All right, when we come back, the Republican promise of an American economy hitting on all cylinders. We're talking to Texas Senator Ted Cruz about the ETA for prosperity on the other side of this break. Tax cuts, lower regulation, bountiful foreign investment, and plenty of good-paying jobs. All part of the Republican tender to American voters in 2024. 7 months into President Trump's term of office, and we are beginning to detect impatience from folks eager to feel the good times roll sooner rather than later. Not to worry, says Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who insists the GOP formula is right on schedule. Senator Ted Cruz, always good to talk to you. I was thinking about the midterms.
Yeah.
And the reality is that when voters are hopeful and prosperous, they'll keep present management.
Yeah.
But if they're uncertain and fearful, they may look to make a change.
Sure.
Two metrics that have come up, and I know you can talk about economics, the jobs report revision and then the PPI, which showed some inflation. Are you concerned?
Look, I'm always concerned in politics. That being said, I look at the first 7 months, and I think this administration, this Congress, we have gotten more done than in any comparable period in your and my lifetime. If you look at something like the One Big Beautiful Bill, there are more conservative victories that make a difference for Texans in that bill than any piece of legislation that has ever passed. So I believe come November that President Trump and Republicans in the House and Senate, they're going to run on a record of success. On jobs, we've had a couple of jobs numbers that were less than had been hoped for. But one thing to remember, look, we're 7 months into an administration. We just passed the biggest tax cut of modern history. We passed legislation that is going to bring billions of dollars investment into this country and help create millions of jobs. So I'm very confident. I think November is going to be running on a record of success, the exact opposite of in 2024, where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris spent the entire campaign running away from their record because it had been so dismal.
BBB had incentives for capital investment, incentives for research, reduces regulation, if not in that bill, other bills, and through executive action. Do you expect those changes, those positives, to have an impact on the economy in the next few months or into next year?
I do. It always takes time for a new law to have impact. It doesn't have instantaneous impact. But if you look at what One Big Beautiful Bill did, number one, if we'd have done nothing, there was an automatic $4 trillion tax increase that would have happened on January 1st at the end of this year. That's what the Democrats wanted. They wanted to sit back and raise taxes on every American taxpayer. That would have been devastating to Texas. That would have been devastating to small businesses, to job creators. It would have been devastating to hardworking families. So we extended those Trump tax cuts. We made them permanent. We also made them bigger and bolder. So it includes, for example, no tax on tips. That was my legislation. I'm the author of No Tax on Tips. That is in the bill. And you and I have talked about before, I think in many ways, the most consequential political shift of the last decade is a socioeconomic shift. That the old conventional wisdom was Republicans are the party of the rich, Democrats are the party of the poor and the working class. I don't know that that was ever the case, but it definitely is not the case today. Today, the Democrats are the party of rich coastal elites, and Republicans, we're a blue-collar party. We're the party of truck drivers and steel workers and cops and firefighters. You need to look at no tax on tips. In the state of Texas, every waiter, every waitress, every bartender, every barber, everyone who works at a hair salon or a nail salon, every taxi cab driver, every Uber driver, they're getting a tax cut. Those are real tax cuts that'll make a difference on people who are struggling. You look at no tax on overtime. Once again, people who are really working hard to provide for their family, they're getting a meaningful tax cut. No tax on Social Security. All of those are promises President Trump made. They're promises we delivered. And I think we are going to see with the incentives in that bill, we are going to see trillions of dollars in new economic activity, massive new investments, new semiconductor fabs, new AI facilities. Texas is booming. And then you put on top of that energy. The 4 years of the Biden administration waging war on Texas energy, that ended on January 20th. And this bill unleashes Texas energy. That's good for jobs in Houston and all across the state of Texas.
As for the prospect of guest worker programs aimed at securing an adequate labor force for immigrant-dependent industries, Senator Cruz was non-committal, suggesting the immediate focus will remain on removing folks who shouldn't be in the country. Now, Rudy, the clock is already ticking toward the midterms, And it won't be long before Cruz and fellow Republicans will need proof of performance on the economy. Agree? Disagree?
Totally agree, and I'm going to use your words there. In politics, let me try that again. In politics, proof of performance is everything. It's just like instant rice. Now, voters want to see the change in their wallets, purses, and bank accounts. They don't want to wait for change and things to cook up. They want it to be served up now. That's the nature of the voting beast and the midterm bear trap for any incumbent. The tariffs, are a big stick in a long game of bringing back manufacturing that went to other countries. That's happening, but it's going to take time to build all the new plants. In the meantime, people are upset that their stuff that they buy online from other countries is costing more because of the tariffs. Now, that may sound trivial, but it is a tangible issue for voters that they may think about when they head into a ballot box and cast a vote. And it also helps with that dig that Trump is just not a nice guy. Bottom line, from day one, the Trump administration, Democrats have shouted, prices are still high, job creation too low. Forget the fact that the economy tanked and the border surged, related crime spiked because of Democrat policies. Voters, Greg, have short-term memories.
Absolutely. Senator Cruz appeared confident that tax cuts, foreign investment, and reduced regulation will hit critical mass in a matter of months. Clearly, Democrats are hoping he's wrong. But if he's right, what the heck do they run on? Authoritarianism? Gerrymandering? What?
Yeah, and exactly what Rudy said is voters have short-term memories. And so if we're talking in the space of talking about the midterms, anything that happens between now and January really is going to be forgotten. It's a matter of will Democrats capitalize on some of the angers that may have gotten people worked up this summer, like redistricting. Now, the Dallas Fed last week came out with a report talking about the economy is slowing and talked about tariffs being an impact. We know with housing, there's a skilled worker shortage and different impacts. And so, just like Rudy said, voters are going to remember what is happening to them in their wallets at that moment. So we'll have to wait and see what's happening in the wallets during the primaries.
All right, Rudy, Cruz says Democrats actually wanted the Trump tax cuts to expire at a cost of $4 trillion to American households and businesses. Do you think that argument gets any traction with midterm swing voters?
Well, they did try, and imagine if that strategy had worked. What a great backdoor strategy. The Biden inflation spike would have taken off like a SpaceX rocket if it had worked, but it didn't. So now the strategy is to demonize several parts of the bill, like the work requirement to get welfare. Democrats say it's cutting the safety net, but it's only requiring able-bodied adults to do some job training, education, community service to maintain the benefits. Bottom line, it's going to be an interesting campaign ad blitz. Like Stephen said, the spin's going to be crazy. Craig?
All right, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but the primary argument Democrats have lodged against Trump economics is that it disproportionately benefits billionaires. Are they going to need more than that, or is that enough?
They're going to need more than that. Like we said, it's going to have to be kitchen table items. And in our interview last week with Dallas County State Senator Royce West, he was saying Democrats can't run so far to the left on certain topics, too, heading into this midterms. So Democrats going to have to find their pitch and hit it hard. All right, when we come back, one of my favorite segments, We've Got Issues. We'll see you after this break. All right, we've got issues. My issue, I know that school is back in, right? And we have to get used to driving in school zones again. But man, I've seen so many cars speeding in school zones and officers just picking off cars one by one. My issue, slow down. Now, some of my friends have told me I'm starting to drive like an old man. I would rather drive like an old man than to be wrapped around a tree. So I'm just going to say slow down. That's my issue.
Yeah, Stephen, I'll agree with you. And also stop passing the school buses when they're stopped picking up and dropping off kids. We're seeing a lot of that too. My issue is vertigo. Ooh, I have it. It's a mean spin. And I had it hit me hard a few days ago. So hard, took me down hard. But the real vertigo spin that I really fear is political and what's coming as we move out of this special session number 2 and into the midterms. Boys, buckle up. The political spin that's coming is going to make my vertigo attack, I feel, easy, slow, like a ride on that old Astroworld antique car ride. Greg, you remember that?
Hey, I actually proposed to my wife on the antique car ride because I was afraid of losing the diamond on the roller coaster. That was anyway, I digress. My issue, one that hasn't gotten much attention during the special session, also education, replacing the STAR test in Texas public schools. Now, under my catchphrase, progress, the proposal on the table appears to peg the meter. Instead of one high-stakes end-of-year exam, lawmakers are going to authorize 3 smaller, less onerous tests delivered throughout the year, giving campus-level educators a better, more immediate snapshot of which students in classrooms are performing well and which need immediate help to get back on track. One highly respected educator I talk to pretty regularly is both relieved and excited by the coming change. Y'all hearing anything on that?
Yeah, and something else that we talked about just recently is that cell phone ban in schools. I think that's going to come up, and I think that this may be an issue revisited in the coming months for us guys. What do you think, Stephen?
And the 10 Commandments, we saw it, action in the courts. We'll have to see if it works its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
All right, that's all the time we have. You can see the interview or any of our past interviews by going to our YouTube pages.
You can also keep the conversation going on our social media sites.
All right, the biggest fight possibly is over in special session 2, but there's a lot of other hot topics. We'll see you same time, same place next week to talk about what's going on around the state. And don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.